Hello, welcome for our next lesson. In the previous lessons, we were looking at the structure of the atmosphere, and I remember I had given you some homework to find out. You identified the major layers of the atmosphere, and also the second part was to list down the transition layers of the atmosphere. And finally, you state the importance of the ozone layer. That is where we had stopped. After looking at the structure of the atmosphere, we'll find that the structure of the atmosphere is made up of 5 layers, and those are the major layers of the atmosphere. Do you remember them? That is good. It is actually the troposphere, the stratosphere, mesosphere, thermosphere, and the exosphere. Those are the 5 major layers of the Earth structure. When you find out the transition zones or transition layers that are also found in the atmosphere, this can be mainly 4. We have the first transition layer. It is referred as the stratopause. The first one is the tropopause. The second one is the stratopause, and then the third one is the mesopause, and then thermopause. Those are the main transition layers. We call them the layers of discontinuity that are found in the atmosphere. As also you wind up and you look, the atmosphere, especially the stratosphere. Stratosphere is made up of an important layer. That layer is referred to as the ozone layer. What do you think is its importance? Ozone layer is very important because it filters the harmful radiations from the sun, especially the ultraviolet radiation from the sun, and it protects the biosphere against destruction. Those are the importance of the ozone layer. Eventually, if ozone layer is actually destroyed, there are going to be enormous and devastating impacts on planet Earth. Now, as we looked at that, how has the modern human affected the biosphere? And the biosphere now here include also planet Earth being included. We are looking at the atmosphere, or just planet Earth. Within the planet, we have what we call the biosphere. Biosphere comprises of the life that is found on Earth. It can be aquatic life, it can be atmospheric life, and also we look at the other living things that are found in the biosphere. Therefore, comprising largely at all, as human beings have been able to live on planet Earth, you'll be able to find out that there are various effects of human on planet Earth. That is hopefully because of the ever-increasing population. And because of the increased population, there is also an increase in technology which is coupled with science. Therefore, the ever-increasing science and technology, or the technological discovery and invention, this is what has brought some impact on planet Earth at a higher and an increasing level. And therefore, this brought us to the global effect of the modern humans on the atmosphere. When you look at at planet Earth, it is made up of a very unique atmosphere, and we have been able to look at this atmosphere at length and also in details. How has modern human affected the atmosphere? That is my question. How has modern human affected especially let's look the atmosphere, and then thereafter the same impact will filter to the biosphere. How has modern human affected the atmosphere? That is a bigger question that we need to exploit it through. When you look at the atmosphere, there is some layer that comprises the weather elements. Let's begin from there. And on Earth, we always experience what we call weather elements, and those elements include cloud cover, sunshine, precipitation, snowfall, temperature, and so forth. During precipitation, there is actually what we call an acid rain. During precipitation, an acid rain is formed. How and why is it formed? It is formed in the atmosphere. That is the point. And then how? We find out that if the atmosphere contains some pollutants, and these pollutants may include gases such as the carbon dioxide gas. We have sulfur dioxide. We also have nitrogenous gases and other fumes industry. These have always been found in the atmosphere. And especially when we look at some of the industrial fumes, they are emitted into the atmosphere. And remember, the percentage of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, nitrogen, they are at a given constant. For example, the carbon dioxide, its percentage is 0.4 in the atmosphere. But at a given rate, because of the industrial fumes, which are also emitted, some of those fumes comes from the motor vehicles and industries. Because of the ever-increasing population, you will find that the rate of carbon dioxide is increasing. The rate of carbon dioxide is increasing in the atmosphere. When it increases in the atmosphere, we come back to the formation of the clouds. These pollutant gases, such as the sulfur dioxide, the carbon dioxide, and nitrogen oxide from industries and cars, they become one of the characteristics of these gases. You will find that they are acidic. They become acidic. And during the formation of rain, because of the clouds that result from the condensation of the water vapor, and these clouds become too heavy and suspended in the atmosphere, they also absorb these gases, and therefore they result into what we call acid rain. Actually, this rain becomes highly acidic, and this rain can kill the biosphere. We are looking at the rain. The rain can destroy the biosphere. One, we look at the biosphere in form of forests. We look at other living organisms. The living organisms that are found on the earth. Forests will be destroyed, living organism, and even to a given extent, the aquatic life is destroyed. Most of this acid rain or acidic content is also absorbed in the rocks. Therefore, rocks begin to disintegrate in the process of weathering. Therefore, as a matter of fact, where does it come from? Where do these effects come from? When forests are rained on, when this rain comes actually on trees where we have plenty of forests, these trees are killed because acid as an actor, is actually a corroding agent. Being a corrosive agent, it decolorizes the green pigment. Decolorizes the green pigment that is the green pigment of plant. And once you want to deal with a plant, that green pigment of a plant is the one that is very much important in the process of photosynthesis, the process by which green plants manufacture their own food. Therefore, once the acid decolorizes the green pigment, therefore, that means the process of photosynthesis has been hindered. It will never happen. Therefore, what will happen to that plant? The plant cannot make its own food. Therefore, it dies by being denatured, or the enzymes in it are denatured. Therefore, the result is that the vegetations, including the forests, the trees and other vegetative matter, wherever there will be an acid rain, there will be completely destruction. And that is one of the impact that is being felt on planet Earth. And it becomes also more dangerous, and it is posing a devastating effect. Let's continue to look at these effects. I hope now you are able to understand. These effects are becoming global issues. At the same time, the acid rain, before it reaches the Earth's surface, it permeates through the layer of the atmosphere. And in the atmosphere, this rain passes through a very important layer that is referred to as the stratosphere. In the stratosphere, we have what we call the ozone layer. I hope now you understand the ozone layer, where it is found. As this rain through the atmosphere in the stratosphere, it encounters what we call the ozone layer. The acid destroys. We have the acidic rain will always destroy the ozone layer. How does it? Because ozone layer is made up of 3 oxygen molecules. When an acid is introduced here, it disintegrates this layer, and it leads to the formation of oxygen, and the other molecule is destroyed. Or sometime it will lead to the destruction of this layer completely by disintegrating or splitting this ozone layer into various pieces. And as a result of the splitting, the acidic nature erodes the ozone layer, and it becomes very much porous. When the ozone layer becomes very porous, it loses the ability to do what? To filter the radiation from the sun. they filter the radiations from the sun. As a matter of fact, when we look at its ability to filter the radiations, especially to filter out, let me use the ultraviolet radiations. These are just rays from the sun. Then these rays will be able to penetrate through the ozone layer at a maximum concentration. And when this excess ultraviolet radiation reaches the Earth's surface, when this radiation reaches the Earth's surface, on Earth's surface, what is found there? We have on Earth's surface, we have the biosphere or the biodiversity. Here we have living things such as the flora and fauna. These living things are affected by the ultraviolet rays that causes very harmful effects on them. Sometimes the ultraviolet rays may react on the genes and bring what we call genetic malfunctioning. When the resultant effect is genetic malfunctioning, you will find it out that the genes are abnormal and there is a malfunctioning of the genetic type of a human being, and that is now, for example, just human. What about on the other surfaces? You will discover that also the skin will be affected, causing various types of diseases, and even to the eye. They will have an effect. These rays have an effect on the skin and the eye. Having looked at this, the skin cancer is most prone disease that emanates from the excess ultraviolet radiations. And then also we also have an eye cancer that is referred to as melanoma. This is a problem that comes from the destruction of the ozone layer. And therefore, ozone layer has become porous. It loses its ability to filter out the excessive ultraviolet rays radiation, which becomes harmful to the biosphere, especially on the flora and fauna, affecting the genetic makeup of living things, causing genetic malfunctioning and bring out deadly diseases which will result into the skin cancer, the eye cancer, and so forth. This becomes a harmful impact. And it is actually becoming a global issue because the industrial fumes are emitted day and night, 24 hours. Because every continent, every country in the world is struggling to industrialize itself. As a result of industrialization, you will find that most of the smoke and most of the fumes are continuously emitted into the atmosphere, going to interfere with the ozone layer. And the ozone layer, once it is interfered, it has no replacement. Once we do not replace it, therefore, the problem comes back on us. That is a greater effect. When we look at more of the industrial activities, such as the emission of the chlorofluorocarbons, emissions of the chlorofluorocarbons and other synthetic chemicals, the chlorofluorocarbons, we call them the CFCs in short, so that we are able to understand them. This is the chlorofluorocarbons that has carbon compounds in forms of the smoke and fumes, including the synthetic chemicals that are emitted by the industry as a result of agricultural activity. This is built up in the atmosphere. Look where all these things are. They are built up in the atmosphere, and these gases always react with the ozone layer, making it more porous and thinner. As a result of that, the damages of the gene causing diseases and cell malfunctioning, as we have been able to look at the destruction of the ozone layer as a result of human activities emanating from deforestation, which leads into desert-like conditions, bringing out desertification. Actually, desertification is a global issue, deforestation is a global issue, and also all these are becoming very harmful to the biosphere. For example, when the sun's energy reaches the earth, some of this energy are trapped in the atmosphere. And these gases, such as carbon dioxide, they are some given level very useful when they maintain their percentage. They keep the lower atmosphere warm enough to support life. But when it is altered through the global warming as a result of the increased temperature, because of the burning of the fossil fuel, which increase the average temperature of the earth, it leads to what we call global warming. And if the temperatures are going to increase rapidly, this will result in a devastating effect. All these effects has in turn affected the land. We have been able to look at those effects of human activity. They are very invisible effects, but the most active in the earth. Therefore, the same effect as they are felt in the atmosphere, some of these effects are filtering down on land. And as you know, the land is the main agent. The main agent of change on Earth's surface is actually agricultural activity, as you have already seen. But how? Most parts of the world have been completely cleared of the trees. That is through deforestation. Most parts of the world have completely cleared their trees or their forests through deforestation, actually to make more space for agricultural activity or for farming, and also because of high and increased population, people need to settle and build somewhere. Therefore, they clear down trees to settle, build industries, also to make farming practices. Many parts of the world are facing this. And as a result of these actions, deforestation has often resulted in desertification. Deforestation has resulted in desertification majorly. When trees are cleared down, what remains is that the earth's surface, which was covered by the trees and other vegetation, it becomes bare. Therefore, exposing the earth's surface on agents of weathering and erosion. Therefore, erosion will take place by, we'll find that the loose and unconsolidated material of the soils are flown away easily in terms of surface runoff. These are the water. The surface runoff, the water that is overflowing. The overflow of water which goes and carries out the soil and go and deposit somewhere. That is soil erosion. Sometimes also, when trees are not there, the same soil is carried away by wind, is actually blown away by wind. Therefore, making the environment, first of all, to look dusty and very smoggy. As a result of that, it turns away the land into semi-arid and arid conditions, which is called desertification. And here, the loss of forests decreases what we call the biodiversity, and this leads into what we call the climate change of the world. Climate change is the average change of all weather pattern in the whole world as a result of also global warming. Global warming is caused by desertification, greenhouse effect, and eventually the whole pattern of the climate is going to change. And when the climate change globally, what is going to happen is that devastating effect. Let's continue to look more and more of this. As a result of the increased greenhouse gases, we will find that the climate change will often a feature that makes the world to experience a devastating effect. And this become a human impact, become a global issue. Therefore, everybody, every individual should take responsibility to be aware of this, so that after knowing, you know what will be the result. We do not want to lose planet Earth because there is no any other planet we have ever found that there is life. We don't want to destroy our own environment. Therefore, we are also being able to look at desertification, which brings about soil erosion again. In the previous lesson, we looked at soil erosion and how we can control it to some given level. We shall extrapolate the same lesson and continue to build on it so that we are learning the skills, scientific skills of conserving our environment in the later lesson. We'll be able to find out that soil erosion as a process of being of the water being, the soil being washed away and also blown away by the wind is a common feature that brings devastating effect on land. It is the one that causes land degradation, clearing of land, plowing, overgrazing. All these are human activities. They destroy the soil structure where plants root have been able to hold the soil firmly together, compacted together, so that this soil is not loose. Eventually, when we destroy trees, overgrazing, overstocking, this destroys the soil, bringing a massive degradation on land, that is soil erosion. Some of those plant roots, when they are destroyed, they lay the soil very bare, causing what we call soil degeneration. Therefore, we shall be able to look at the soil degeneration under the same aspect at soil erosion, so that we are able to understand these consequences and the aspects of global human activities to another given level. These things are happening on land. Deforestation happens on land. When we visit industrial chemicals, we have what we call the biocides. The biocides are the chemicals that kill living things, such as pesticides, herbicides, which kill both pests. We have the pesticides and the herbicides. There is excessive use of the biocides, thus are pesticides, herbicides, by human activity in every country. Perhaps these chemicals, whenever they are used for a long period of time, anyway, they are good for agricultural, for farming, but in other words, they also destroy other living things. Therefore, we should find an alternative way of avoiding the biocides. Okay, how do these biocides affect the land or affect the global aspect or even the planet Earth? When we use, for example, the pesticides to kill pests and the herbicides to kill we call them the herbs, especially those that grows on farm. We do not want them. They help actually in weeding. The pesticides and the herbicides are used actually in weeding and also killing the animals. You'll find that when these chemicals remain, they do what? They infiltrate. One, they filtrate into the soil. We'll be able to look at them later. And then two, they also filter out on the water bodies. Let me deal with the water bodies because it is more essentially of the biosphere. When we look at the water bodies, as a result of pesticides and herbicides infiltrating, some of these chemicals are washed away. They are washed into the water bodies, and because of excessive rainfall in some given area, there is what we call flooding and silting along the water bodies. Accumulated silting, accumulated by the soil debris, silt, and some of the minerals which are dissolved in the water, they go and add what we call fertilizer. Fertilizer into the water streams, And as this fertilizer is added into the water streams, there will be what we call an algal bloom. That means the algae will get the fertilizer and overgrow. Excessive growing of algae. The excessive growing of the algae is going to cause what we call oxygen deprivation in the water body, therefore destroying what we call the aquatic life. In the process of this fertilizer being added into the water, it brings us to the action of eutrophication. So, eutrophication, when this fertilizer has been added into the water, the algal bloom comes out, and this is excessive growth of algae, which is known as now eutrophication. As a result of that, oxygen is going to be excessively used from the water. Oxygen is going to be excessively used from the water bodies, and therefore, when oxygen has been used from the water bodies completely, some of the aquatic life will begin to die. It will interfere with aquatic life. The aquatic life will be interfered with. This become a menace, and it become a global impact on water body. We have been able to look at the silting as a result of that. Another aspect, as a result of water, is actually what we call salinity. Salinity is a process by which the mineral salts that come from other chemicals, when they are washed down and during the flooding, this water is taken into the water bodies such as the rivers. We have lakes, we have oceans, and also seas. When we look at the salinity, actually is the process by which the mineral salts that are in the soil and other chemicals that add salts in the soil, these are washed and deposited down in the rivers, lakes, and seas and ocean, increasing the salinity or making the oceanosphere to have a saline environment. And as a result of that, when in the ocean, in any given water body, there is a saline environment, one aquatic life is interfered. And when we are talking about the aquatic life, we are talking about the life of fish, which is a food for human being. We also have other marine life. We have so many other living things that also take part in life, live in water. Then when we interfere with the fish, where will we get food? You'll discover that all the marine and the aquatic life has been killed, especially as a result of the saline environment. And in the process of oxygen being used up in the water body by substances that are produced by human activities, especially most of these substances, I want to highlight them. We have the sewage, we have the dumping of garbage, and so many other activities. These substances, when they are released into the rivers, lakes, and ocean, actually they also accelerate the process of eutrophication, Most mineral elements such as the nitrates, phosphates, they act as fertilizer that bring what we call an algal bloom, and when they overgrow, they lead to the deprivation of oxygen in the water, and therefore the aquatic life is interfered with. More pollution have become a resultant effect of the excessive nutrients of the synthetic chemicals, plastics, oil spillage, and radioactive metals. These are washed down into our rivers, the lakes, oceans, and seas. All these have brought what we call a global effect. It has mounted up into a global effect of human impact on the atmosphere. Therefore, we have to develop some ecological conditions that will be able to help our environment to be sustained. After looking at this, then, what should we do? What should we do so that we make up our biosphere? We sustain our ecological environment. In a short while, there are just some few principles I will share out that can be able to help us. We have to develop what we call ecological condition for sustainability. These conditions are always developed in a manner that they are compatible with the rest of the environment, such that the basic needs are met. And there are key principles that we have to follow in developing ecological condition for sustainability. The key principal issues that we have to follow, I will highlight them. That is, we have to be intergenerational. We have to provide what we call intergenerational equity. Intergenerational. When we look at the intergenerational equity, here we advocate that, or from the scientific point of view, we advocate that the present generation should be able to work out its best so as to leave a healthy environment for the next generation. This is what we call intergenerational equity. So that when the present generation is going to leave the next generation with a healthy and diverse and productive environment, then it will be its responsibility also to make sure it gives it back. For example, I want to give you this product, this pen. I have maintained it for a period of time. I am handing it over to you for productivity in a healthy manner. So it is your responsibility again to take it, use it, and then do not destroy it, but pass it on to the next person. That is what we call intergenerational equity. The second principle, or the second key principle, is conservation of biodiversity. We have to look at the conservation of biodiversity. And this one should be our own responsibility. The environment where we live, where we stay, we have to try our level best to conserve the biodiversity and ecological integrity. This should be a constraint to all economic activity. For example, in Kenya, there is a national body that is referred to as NEMA. This one is in Kenya. Is a National Environmental Management Authority. This one is found in Kenya. It places some ecological constraint on all economic activity that are undertaken by any industry, any company, regardless of wherever they are, so that we are trying to conserve the biodiversity in an ecological integrity. There have been some companies that have been unscrupulous. When they go produce other products, they dump them in the environment. Thank God that because of the conservation measures that we have come up with them, especially as the National Environmental Management Authority in Kenya, we have been able to wipe away all the plastics. This has been a menace periodically over time. When you look at the plastics, they have been able to be dumped into the ocean, into the seas, into the lakes, and also down the rivers. The aquatic life is destroyed. The biodiversity is lost. They are non-biodegradable. Plastics, they cannot be degraded. When you dump them in the soil, for 50 years you will still come and find them. What do? They are polluting and destroying our environment. As a result of that, they were reaching in a given level that they are interfering with the basement of building and construction industry because of these plastics. Therefore, I hope also in Australia there is an environmental management and conservation body. How is it called? Are you active member of it? Yes, we have to take parts here. As a result of that, we are going to help ourselves and the next generation. That is the second key principle that we have to undertake. Another third principle we'll have to look at is constant capitation. That is constant capital. We'll have, it is constant natural capital. Natural capital. Natural capital and sustainable income. This is also another principle that we have to follow. This involves that we have to be involved in the constant and natural capital that is sustainable, especially in matters of human. This could happen that you can only be given what will sustain you today and indefinitely, should not be taken too much. The ability of people amassing wealth to themselves is the one that has brought a menace in the whole issue of the world. If you will be contented naturally by sustainable measures of the capital throughout, then we will not have a problem to cause to other natural resources that we have. In the next, that is number 4, we have to take what we call the precautionary policy approach. We have to develop what we call precautionary policy approach in matters of making decisions. Here, decisions should be cautiously made to prove the sustainable development is received at the end. We don't just have to make decisions because we are not taking precautions. These policies are very important. These policies are very important in matters of development or in matters of developing what you call sustainable measures of global issue. If we have to sustain our environment, then we have to go that way. And lastly, we have to embrace what you call, that is, pricing environmental values. Pricing environmental values and natural resources to recover the full and social environmental cost. This, when we price our environment, especially environmental values and natural resources that we have to price them. The natural resources, we will be able to recover the full social environmental cost. We have to peg it everywhere, because if we do not, some human beings are irresponsible. Therefore, we have to root out irresponsibility in the mind of individuals so that our planet is safe, our environment is safe. We are able to provide what is best for ourselves. Then we will enjoy quality life. Otherwise, if we continue destroying our own environment, we will be unable to find new life elsewhere. And remember, human life is actually only existing up to 100 years. So far, it is only the rocks that can exist more than this. But human life, there is no human being has gone beyond this, especially in the modern global days. Therefore, we have also to watch our lifestyle. This becomes our lesson today for looking at the global effects on environment, specifically from the atmosphere to the land and various sources. In the next lesson, we shall meet and proceed with our lesson. Thank you.